And then I came. I'm in like a cafe, and so they just brought me some delicious truffle fries. So I was eating some quickly, so I had some energy after the gym. Before we got into talking about more energetic things. So welcome to Brain Tech Support Live. I know for a lot of you, Erica, thank you for wishing me a good evening. It is evening here. It's very rainy outside. It's dark and rainy. It's a nice time to be in a cafe. But to you, good morning. I hope you're having a good morning so far. I'm just gonna adjust these on Brain Tech Support Live for anybody who's joining us for the first time. We explore how to do the things we want to do in life while having human experiences around us and inside of us. It's like thoughts, feelings and voices and images and urges and everything else that could possibly come up in the brain, and all of the experiences that could happen outside of our brains. Tudawak, Narina, Stefan, Christian, yours truly. Hello everybody, welcome. Gather around. Thanks for stopping by the cafe this morning or this evening or this afternoon, whatever it's doing where you're at. I can't remember if I mentioned this on Instagram or I mentioned it over on the Discord server, but I was saying how, today what we can talk about is, what do we want to do this week? What do we want to do in the week ahead while we have any kind of experience that we can have? This week we're gonna have feelings that we're not ready to do something. We're gonna have feelings that we've done something wrong and we should put life on hold to go and fix the wrong thing before we move forward. We're gonna feel like, what if somebody else did something wrong, and we have to get certainty about that before we go and live our lives. We're gonna feel we have to figure out mental health and solve it perfectly before we go and do the things we want to do. All of those things are feelings we can have, but we don't have to put them in charge of our lives. We can look at where we want to go in life. We can look at what we want to create in life, and then we can grow that and give time and energy to growing that. I know it's really hard when we've been struggling with something. It feels like, oh no, I have to stop life and I have to go and fix this thing. Or it feels like, oh, if I just go and live my life, I'm avoiding this bad thing. And that can get us in all sorts of ways, feeling like, oh, if I'm avoiding something, I'm not, working right on my mental health. But also the fear that, oh, I'm gonna go live my life, and then because I didn't solve this, it's gonna come back and get me. Those are just popular tricks the brain loves. So everything we do today, my Parmesan truffle fries were just about to take a tumble. Whatever we talk about today, let's keep in mind that idea. Like the brain at a fundamental level is always going to do that thing where it's like you've got to clean this thing before you move forward. But that's just the brain demanding that you ask it for permission to live your life, and it's not going to give you permission. Stefan said, I notice my friends being naturally creative and funny, but I feel incapable and frustrated that my brain throws thoughts right when I'm trying to think and be creative. How can I change? So one, right at the start, that judgment that your friends are being naturally creative and funny. So judgments like that are the same as somebody, saying, somebody with contamination compulsions saying, oh, I notice my friends and they're clean. Why can't I be clean? My friends are just naturally clean and I'm not clean. And so right away, if you're doing that kind of judging and you're chasing a goal, like I want to be naturally creative, naturally funny, etc. That's the same as chasing, like, I want to be clean. And so having a goal like that and then doing comparisons like that, it's always like, and you've seen this, like, it's always gonna create the opposite of what you're looking for. So if you believe you can't have thoughts because thoughts interfere with being clean, or you can't have thoughts because thoughts interfere with being creative or funny or yourself, then the brain's just going to throw up more and more thoughts. So yeah, it can really help. What helped me a lot was seeing however I am right now is how I am. I don't need to fix that. I don't need to change that. Right here, right now, I can give something I want to give with any thought or feeling. So I want to give things I want to give with thoughts and feelings, or french fries, or coffee, or music, or rain, or whatever. As long as your goal is to not have those things, and you want to also check and chase those other things, the brain's just going to try to help you do that. And the brain is not good at helping. Wonderson, hello. Isabel, good noontime. I hope your noontime goeth well. Dom, yeah. Dom, I see you have many posts here. Dom, you'll have to phrase a question. Like, add more words to your question. Your question is spiritual parts, question mark, inner child, question mark. I assume you're asking, like, did I sprinkle inner child on my Parmesan fries? The answer is yes, absolutely, always. Isabel said I was asked for a selfie, so I just took about 20. I thought at first you meant like like YouTube asked you for a selfie or something when you joined today. The taking selfies, actually, this is something for everybody out there. If you do social media or you get asked to take a photo, I think it's harder. So Isabel, yeah, you bring it up. It's harder if it's something you rarely do. But often, if people are active on social media and they frequently take pictures of themselves, one of the exercises I'll give them is you get one photo and you have to post it exercise. But actually, I find that's a better exercise when we do it regularly. Yeah, if you're not frequently taking selfies and then you get asked to, yeah, the brain's gonna want to get it right, and that's just the brain doing brain things. Christian, he said, lately I got a unique intrusive thought about something that happened in the past. Things didn't go wrong, but my brain can't stop obsessing over what if it did. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. And you, Christian, can you explain what would you like to hear thoughts on? Because yeah, what you're experiencing there, like totally normal. The brain can obsess about whatever, but that doesn't mean you have to engage with it. But are you engaging with it? That's what I'd be curious about. Marlos, welcome. Dom said, so surely it's not just the brain going on. Feels like different parts competing for attention. I also get heart pains. Is that just anxiety? Well, what really helped me is shifting the focus to the actions. So, and recognizing that the brain just likes compulsions. So the brain is going to throw up whatever feeling. Just like I was talking about there with Stefan, the brain is going to throw up whatever feeling gets you to do the compulsions. So like heart pains are a great example. Lots of people end up going to the ER, getting told, oh, like there's nothing going on here, and like, oh, but I'm having I'm having a heart attack, or like I'm having whatever, and sometimes get told, oh no, you're having a panic attack, or this is something we've talked about people have shared on the Discord server before about, yeah, going to get like multiple tests done on their heart, even kind of invasive tests, to check and make sure that it's right. And so it's quite common, but the brain loves the compulsions. And so same if something getting labeled as spiritual or getting labeled as different in our brains gets us to go and do a whole bunch of compulsions, then that's what the brain's going to throw up. That's why I find it so important to look at compulsions, not how we judge the thought or feeling. Because if we attach cutting out compulsions to a particular judgment, a particular set of labels that we put on thoughts and feelings, but then we go, oh, well, but if it's a physical uncertainty or if it's a spiritual uncertainty, then I'm going to do the compulsions. That's what you're going to get. Stefan said, I noticed that I make my entire life an exposure to beat OCD. I honestly forgot how to live life without mental illness. How should I start shifting away from this? Yeah, I find it's so useful. That's why I was mentioning the, making today about what we're gonna do this week. And so you can do it right there. Like, what do you want to do this week that's not about fixing brain stuff? Because also it's so important when we approach mental health work that it's not about fixing brain stuff. Because again, if we're just trying to clean something, we're trying to find this like special soap to like get rid of stuff in our heads, it's just going to encourage the brain to throw up more of it. Right? The brain's trying to help you. If success is defeating an enemy, then you need more of the enemy to be more successful. And then the brain just finds you more and more and more and more enemies. So it's really helpful that we walk off the battlefield. So how does everybody want to walk off the battlefield this week? Tom, she said, old bullying wounds coming up and feel like I should address them. My core belief seems to be that I need to have love before I do anything in life. You say just get on with things, but just getting on with things doesn't mean we have to do it without love. That love is going to come from us though. So often we're searching for from others what we need to give ourselves or what we don't give ourselves. And that's very natural. We're even more desperate to get it from other people. One thing that really helped me was seeing myself as a colleague of mine. And so would I talk to a colleague the way I talk to myself? And in the past it was very understandable if I see myself as a colleague that I really didn't trust myself. I didn't trust myself to go and do things because I was constantly telling myself that I wasn't good at them, that I was gonna screw them up, that I had screwed them up, that I wasn't doing them right, that I shouldn't do them, that I shouldn't take on that responsibility, and so on. So I was constantly micromanaging myself, never giving myself responsibility, always questioning what I was doing, and always critical of any mistake. So just like if I was working with somebody, of course they wouldn't feel like they could go and do anything. Why would they? I'd spent so much time telling myself that I couldn't do it and I shouldn't be doing it. So I had to become a better colleague to myself. And so you as well, if you're going to go and do things, it might be useful to be a supportive colleague to you. This is I was gonna say it's strong coffee, but it's a very dark roast coffee. It's kind of bitter. Arpit, oh, thank you for stopping by. Flomo, oh, greetings to Austria. I hope you're having a good, afternoon. Narina said, I read a book about narcissism, and now I'm constantly thinking about it. How do I stop wondering if other people are narcissists or if I'm a narcissist? Yeah, so this comes up a lot right now. Everybody has become really familiar with the term narcissist. So the fear, a lot of people being afraid that they're narcissists, but then on constant looking for narcissists. And so like an actual narcissist is kind of unique But at the same time, narcissists themselves follow extremely predictable patterns. And so yeah, you kind of, if you ever have the unfortunate and rare experience to run into one, yeah, you kind of you figure it out pretty. Not necessarily, actually. I was gonna say, no, you don't figure it out pretty quickly. But once you start putting together the dots, hopefully sooner than later, then it's pretty obvious. But yeah, for the time being, what it's useful to look at, of course, these are the kind of same fears that come up around like, what if I lose my mind? What if I'm a bad person? Existential fears, depersonalization, derealization. What if we're in a simulation? The identity fears. And so yeah, again, it's a really useful opportunity to look at the week ahead and say, yeah, maybe I'll get attacked by a narcissist. Maybe I am a narcissist, but what are the things I want to give this week? And what actions am I going to do to give them? Isabel, that's a great question. Wondering if you are rough on yourself in other unnecessary ways too. We often are, right? Yours truly. He said, ever since I began my journey into recovery, I've noticed I'm becoming better at not engaging in thoughts. Oh, congratulations. But I find myself trying to not engage with all thoughts. Any advice? Shifting it, like here's one way to think of it. Say you're out hiking in the wilderness. Okay, so we're out hiking in the wilderness, and it used to be that we had a compulsion to turn over every rock. So we would go in the wilderness and we're just turning over rocks because we're a huge fan of salamanders. Biologists, I can't remember what people who study salamanders are called, but we're one of those salamander studyologists, but then we were just we want to go on a hike, but we would only get a couple meters because we would just see so many rocks and we're flipping them all over. And now we've seen, okay, actually, I'm not gonna flip over every rock. But then, as you're taking a hike in the woods, because maybe you want to go climb a mountain, you come across a rock in your path. And right away you go, oh, no, I'm working on my mental health, I don't flip over rocks. But the thing is that rock's actually in your path. And maybe it would be useful to, push it out of the way or flip it or do something with it, stick some dynamite in it, blow it up. Hopefully not hurt the salamander living underneath it. The way we identify those rocks we do want to do something with versus all the ones that are just a distraction is by looking at what we value. So if something is on the path to where I want to go, then I'm gonna engage with it, I'm gonna do things with it. Same with thinking. Like, thinking is an amazing power tool. Thinking about strategy and work we want to do to build and grow things we want to create can be really useful. Spending hours having imaginary conversations about arguments that we're not even going to have in real life, not so useful. And so it's identifying what that path is. The things that are on the path, we're gonna interact with. Because yeah, if they're barriers, we're gonna need to do something with them. Or they might just be really useful to moving along on the path. But if it's off the path, then I'm gonna notice that, maybe I'll notice the urge to go and, oh, I bet that rock has a salamander under it. And I'll go, you know what, I found enough salamanders, I'm just gonna keep on walking. So it's knowing which direction I want to go that tells me that. Robert, yes, how do you deal with the anxiety of getting better with OCD? Yeah, Robert, can you tell me more about what you mean? Well, Isabel, congratulations on not checking on your selfie. Diego, hello. Oh, Robert, here you explain more. You said, my intrusive thoughts will go away, but then I will start to get nervous that they are And I feel like they come back more once I get anxious that they are gone. Yeah, exactly. Actually, it's I wrote an article about this years ago. How the scariest thing on the mental health journey was actually the day when I didn't have any more intrusive thoughts. Uh, it's really useful to understand that yeah, it is possible to leave this stuff behind. But because we've so often become hooked on solving the problem and chasing that solution rather than just building our lives, that when the enemy is taken away, we don't know how to be happy. We don't know how to measure success. We don't know what to do. We've become so hooked on defeating enemies, even though we say we hate the enemy. So that's why it's so important, right? Rather than having a goal around fixing OCD, is to just be done with it and build goals around things we want to add into our lives so that we're not having to measure whether or not we've gotten rid of something we dislike. Because if that's what you measure, when it's gone, that's terrifying. Okay. Sid, can you talk about why we focus so much on changing actions and what happens when we stop trying to control thoughts and feelings and do the stuff we care about instead? Yeah. One of the things I think is really important with changing actions is to understand, and this I found was really important for me, that actions are how I spend my time and energy. So that includes what I'm doing in my head as much as what I'm doing outside of my head. And so really, YouTube told me it was reconnecting there for a second. So I'll just repeat the last thing I said. It really helped me to recognize that having a conversation in my head, an imaginary conversation, was the same as having a real conversation. Or, flipping through memories of something, no different than me going online and checking for reassurance on something. Or if I'm like trying to fix and get a thought right, no different than cleaning myself again and again to feel right. And so that's what we're talking about when we're talking about actions, how we spend our time and energy. And part of that is recognizing that we get choices there. We don't control what comes up. I don't control what somebody does around me right now. I don't control what my brain does around me right now, right? It's just an organ kind of mostly doing its own thing, throwing stuff up. So I don't control the stuff that's getting thrown up, but I do control what happens next. And for years, inside of us and outside of us, we kind of end up very reactive. And it makes sense. Often we're trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to control a lot of uncertainty that either is very difficult for us or puts us in lots of challenging situations. Now we want to shift the focus to taking the brain in a new direction, and we do that by changing actions inside our heads and outside of our heads, recognizing that the brain actually is an amazing power tool, and it does want to help. Because of things that have happened in the past, it's trying to help in a way that we now find not enjoyable or that doesn't scale to the complexity of the uncertainties we encounter in everyday life. But now we need to teach it some new tricks, and we do that through changing actions. And then the second part of your question was, what happens when we stop trying to control thoughts and feelings and do the stuff we care about instead? Because changing actions is about teaching the brain new ways of doing things, it does change. And so even like we were just talking about an example of that a moment ago, like when we stop hating on thoughts and trying to control thoughts, the brain, because it likes saving energy, and also it's only giving us that stuff so we can get that hit of control, it can start to stop doing it. And so a lot of the times when we're talking about mental health, the recovery, or you see, specifically around OCD, you'll often see posts go like, yeah, you can learn healthy skills, but you'll have intrusive thoughts forever, or you can recover, but there'll be intrusive thoughts forever. And that was not my experience. And precisely because actually one of the scariest things on the journey is when you don't have intrusive thoughts. or you don't have anxiety, because it was like there was this, so much time, energy got spent on fixing how I felt that, yeah, when you just feel okay, like one of the most terrifying things is that, yeah, you kind of have no excuse to not go and do the things you've always wanted to do. Because yeah, you can no longer be like, oh, like, if only this anxiety wasn't there, or if only my brain would let me go and live my life. And then once you teach the brain you're not going to do compulsions anymore, the brain's going to go like, all right, go do it. And then you have to be like, oh, I guess now I have to go and live my life, and that can be challenging at first. But that's why we look at, like, okay, how do we put the actions in place so that we're living our lives? Diego, he said, my therapist said to do some breathing exercises and said, that sounds both threatening and not threatening. Oh, and then you took it as, don't come if I can't do them. And I haven't done them or been to therapy. Oh no, Diego. Oh, it's okay for you to go to therapy and have therapists repeat things. So not a therapist, I coach people and I repeat the same things many, 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 many times. And it's okay. Yeah. It's just like going to the gym and so you have a personal fitness trainer. It's useful. Like, even if they're not teaching you, like, I think, like, I like to do CrossFit. Every time we do some basic movements, the trainer is gonna, like, walk everybody through the basics of it again. And that's really useful. So yeah, totally okay to struggle with an exercise. It's really helpful, and I tell people this all the time. If I'm meeting somebody, and they maybe send me a message like, oh, I can't make the session this week because I haven't done the exercises. I say, let's meet, because that's so useful to look at what's getting in the way. Why haven't you done the exercises? Why is it challenging? So with the breathing exercise, it's so useful to go back to the therapist and be like, oh, here's why this was difficult. Here's why I struggled to do it. I'd like some help, exploring this topic or exploring these physical sensations. And that's important too, because often the things we initially share with a professional, mental health professional, are not the things we actually need to be working on, but they were the things that were at the surface, or things we saw as the problem. So we shared them, but it's really useful to recognize, hey, that's not actually the thing we gotta tackle. Tudawak, hello. He said, what's your opinion on psilocybin? So that's mushrooms, magic mushrooms. Psilocybin to work on anxiety. Just out of interest, the question is not a compulsion. It is a popular topic. It comes up. I've how to describe this? Like, I know people who have tried them in a mental health context, so I have experience interacting with people while they've been doing them in that context, to work on mental health. And the research, I haven't seen any, there is research going on in this stuff, but just like with ketamine, so ketamine's another drug that's also seen as like one of these psychedelic therapies, and ketamine therapy, it's become quite popular, but I haven't seen anybody while they're doing it have any kind of particularly significant or exceptional benefit. Let's say it that way. What I emphasize to people all the time, and so it doesn't matter whether you're going to take psilocybin, you're going to take an SSRI, you're going to take whatever. I've seen a lot of OCD channels. I've recently been doing vitamin sponsorships and trying to make that sound like it's evidence based. And the reality is, whatever you take, even if it's Parmesan fries, we still have to do the work. We still have to practice the skills, because how we interact with anxiety, sure, you can try to find something to lower anxiety, but you still have to learn the skill to interact with uncomfortable experiences. Because yeah, it might not be anxiety tomorrow. It might be physical pain, it might be depression, it might be intrusive thoughts, it might be some kind of phantom pain, it might be sleep issues, whatever. Could be grief. So many different experiences we can have. We need to learn how to interact with difficult human experiences in a way that's healthy for ourselves and those around us, that supports us in having that experience, while giving the things we want to give in life and taking care of ourselves. And so that skill still needs to be learned. Absolutely, there are going to be times on the journey where, yeah, it might be helpful for us to, take some steps to lower some feeling or some experience. The example I was just explaining this to somebody the other day is if you're mountain climbing. So if you're mountain climbing, there is a skill there to learn, right? Climbing a mountain, rock climbing. It may be painful, and absolutely you can take some kind of, you might take supplements, you might take a pre-workout drink, you might, take painkillers. There's all sorts of things you might take to manage the feelings of that experience. Especially if you're new to rock climbing, maybe you're on a multi-day hike with lots of rock climbing, you might really enjoy having some Advil with you. You might find yourself very, very stiff. But that is a fundamentally different practice from the skill of learning how to rock climb. So you don't want to be in a situation where you go, oh, I don't feel stiff today, therefore I must be good at rock climbing. Those do not equate. Where you're like, oh, I have no pain in my calves. Let's go scale Mount Everest. Maybe in K2. Mount Everest wasn't a good example. You can kind of walk up it, but a mountain that requires skill. The absence or presence of a feeling is not a skill. That's where I stand on that. Yeah, absolutely. People may take something, all sorts of things. This is coffee. It's kind of dark tasting, bitterish coffee. There's no particular thing I'm doing with it. It was more to enjoy it. But absolutely, people take all sorts of things all the time. But we just can't mistake that for a skill. So yeah, enjoy exploring. Wanderson said the dark room exercise you shared during the pandemic was very interesting and challenging. How do you think a person could be happy if everything they want and like had disappeared? And so for everybody wondering, this is what have I labeled it? There's a YouTube video explaining this. It's called the happiness and isolation exercise. It's not just for when you're on a pandemic. It's a really good exercise for anybody who has fears of losing control. Losing your mind, getting trapped, being any kind of self-harm, being accused of a crime, everybody hating you, etc. It's to get at some of our fears around that. But the question Wanderson asked, I'm not going to give you any hints. It's something you've got to explore, right? How could you be happy, locked up, without control over anything? One thing to look at, if you're exploring it, is what you're going to do in your head. Because I guarantee you, if you are locked up in a room with no control over anything, ruminating all the time is not going to be enjoyable. Nelny, he said, I've had plenty of intrusive thoughts that have come and gone, but the one about self-harm is something I can't seem to escape from. And Nelly, do you have a question about that? And Rocky Fighter, you said, why a thought coming repeatedly from one ear? Is it okay to accept that I have OCD? Will that awareness help me? Uh, it could, like, that's going to be to you to explore. What I look at there is like, yeah, what can it be okay for the thought to be there? What if you don't have to spend any time and energy on it? Oh, Christian, I do. I wish you luck. Oh, Marlos, you said, when do you know if you're ready for big changes? I'm on it. I'm at an age where you need to think about kids, and my brain switches day to day. What if I want kids or not? It's not something you can just try out. Oh, Marlos, just so everybody knows, what's the age? What is that age? Am I at that age? Should I be thinking about this? You're never going to feel ready. You're probably going to make a decision like that based on other factors, but not a feeling of like, am I ready? 'Cause yeah, I don't know any parent who was like, I am ready. Certainly after they had a baby, they did not feel that anymore. T, he said, any advice on getting over shyness? When I talk to my family and friends I've known for ages, everything feels natural. And I don't even think about it. But with others, my voice gets really small and quiet, and I end up overthinking what I say. And then I don't end up saying it because the moment has passed. When I overhear people I want to be friends with talking to each other, I can come up with all sorts of things I'd add to the conversation. But when I actually approach them, my mind just goes blank. Yeah, one of the things to explore, so you can, an exercise I often share, is to start practicing asking for things. And so what you do is you just go in a store and you practice asking for something. And it doesn't have to be something you need. It might be something you already know the answer to. So like you go in a store and just go up to the cashier and just says, hey, I just want to make sure, are you open tomorrow? Or what time do you close tomorrow? Or go into a grocery store and ask them where the cheese is, even though you know where the cheese is. Or ask them for something they don't have. To just practice also, because they might be like, oh, we don't have that. They might even be like, well, obviously we don't have that. Like you asked for cheese and you're in the hardware store. And so, yeah, you practice asking for things. You can also set an exercise. Like one I did was where I said like, oh, I have to start a conversation whenever I meet somebody in my building. Another one I used to do was, I need to start a conversation with every cashier when I go to a store. And so to just start practicing saying things and not trying to think it over in advance. You can just go and you can say something. And yeah, the brain will worry like, oh, what if you're gonna say something wrong? Be like, hey, like that's not the goal. Like I can't say anything wrong. The goal is just to speak to that person. If you have an opportunity to go to some social events, like networking events and things like that, also key here is picking a goal that you're 100% in control of. So what I did, I had all sorts of anxieties around talking to strangers. So I'd go to say a networking event or something like that, and then set a goal of I have to meet 4 new people. And so it doesn't matter if I feel anxious, it doesn't matter if I say the wrong thing, because the only measure of success is meeting 4 people. That's the only way I'm gonna judge it as successful or not. And so, yeah, exploring those things rather than, in the past where we might say, oh, that was a good event because I felt like I said the right things, or oh, that was okay because I wasn't anxious. Don't go for that, because then the brain needs to keep giving you anxiety to fix. So yeah, enjoy setting some actions that you control and then risking it. 10 Tita, you said, I wanted to ask you about the law of attraction. And do you believe in them? Isn't it a way to ruminate and practice thinking? It will trap me in my head. Yeah, it's a really classic magical thinking. compulsion. And so yeah, it really common compulsion can really get people wrapped up into all sorts of, because the brain quickly goes, whoa, if you believe this, then the very logical OCD brain takes it to all sorts of extremes. Sal said, I still have what feels like automatic mental compulsions after the initial obsession. How can I achieve greater recovery over this? Oh, so I have great news. You are 110% fully recovered now. Instead of trying to achieve greater recovery, it could be really useful to look at what are some things you want to give time and energy to in life, and then to do that. And yeah, maybe the brain's going to do some automatic mental compulsions because it's just an organ, and that's something it does. Like just like if somebody, I don't know, you've noticed that eating a particular food makes your stomach gassy. All right, so the gassiness is an automatic thing that organ does. And just seeing, okay, fine, it can do that. I'm not going to spend time fixing it. What do I actually want to spend my time and energy on? And then doing that. Stefan, so when I'm trying to study, my brain throws intrusive thoughts to the front of my head. Right here. I get hooked so easily, but sometimes they go away. I then ruminate on how they went away. Or how can I change or practice acceptance? I tend to focus so much time on accepting and then get frustrated that the thought is lingering longer. So right there, so that's not acceptance. Yeah, so it might help to see, like acceptance would be studying. Like there's, so look, this cafe is maybe a great example. There's lots of stuff happening around me. There's babies screaming, I'm actually facing the kitchen, so everything that comes in and out of the kitchen, there's, staff just kind of hanging out at the kitchen, there's things happening in the kitchen, there's things happening over there, all sorts of sounds going on around me, there's music playing, I don't know if you guys can hear it, I can hear all sorts of plates banging and things like that over there. I can hear a car right now or something. There's lots of things. And I don't have to do anything with them to accept them. Acceptance is me identifying, hey, what do I want to do right now? I want to connect with you all. We get to have I guess we do this like twice a week where we get together and, we talk about these fun skills and these challenges that we run into. And that's what I want to give my attention to. And so maybe it can help to see like acceptance isn't a thing to do. It's especially not a thing to do to get rid of a thought or an experience, right? Like especially, and this is a great example. Like if I was trying to accept, I can hear a kid yelling right now. If I was trying to accept that because I thought, oh, well, that's gonna make it go away, I'd end up with the opposite, right? Because I'm actually paying attention to the kid. I'm probably gonna notice it more. I'm gonna be more aware if like another kid comes along and screams. What I do instead is I give my attention to what we're doing right here. The result of that is that there could be all sorts of sounds around me and it doesn't matter. My brain's not gonna allocate any bandwidth to that. So it might help to just set aside this idea of like accepting thoughts and instead look at, oh, what do you wanna do? What if you don't have to fix anything around you in the cafe? What if you can just give your time and energy to the thing you care about? Bagel shared about taking some mushrooms here. I said, I took a small dose of mushrooms for my cluster headaches and migraine 2 weeks ago. Oh, I hope your head is feeling okay. Then there's it. I laughed with my partner, drank some juice and tea, and fell asleep listening to cartoons. I had many feelings. Oh, I hope, yeah, Bagel, I hope your head is feeling better. King Khan, you said, what do you do for a living apart from guiding people's mental health? Oh, that's a big chunk of what I do. And I think, yeah, like I was surprised because I'm kind of in this weird, you know, not a therapist, but then, you know, I do get involved in lots of, you know, mental health, systemic things like helping write quality standards, and I get involved in a lot of patient communities and things like that. So I didn't realize at first that actually the number of coaching clients I meet in a week is more than your average therapist in private practice. So I do have, you know, a successful private practice in my field. I also write books, and so I've written a mental health book that's been translated into 10 different languages, I think, something like that. And so also, yeah, that generates income, or has generated income. The just that's a, you know, you get some money when you first make a book, and then it'll still be a while before that is like the what's called the advance. It's like paid off by do that, and yeah, I'm writing a novel now. Who knows if that will generate income? But yeah, it's a possibility. I love to see in the comments just some people just writing death, like exclamation marks and hearts. Nelny, yeah, you mentioned any advice on how to escape self-harm thoughts. So they're very common. It's very common. I find it useful to see like the thoughts around, oh no, like the fear of losing control and hurting ourselves. Very, very common with other fears of losing control. And the thing, so there's two things. So one, if somebody brought that up, I'd always ask them, what are other things you like to control in life, like other uncertainties? Because quite often the brain is just being very logical. If we like controlling lots of uncertainties, the brain just goes, ooh, but what about this uncertainty? How are we going to control that? And of course, we find that really weird and difficult to deal with, but the brain's just trying to get control and certainty. And often we've taught it that we like control and certainty. And so the brain's just trying to do its job. But then also what I like to look at there is how do you get to be yourself right now? Because often with those fears, there's a negative feedback loop, right? It's a fear of not being ourselves, right? Not living our lives. We want to live our lives. But then often what we do is we start to avoid things in our life because we're like, oh no, but I have this intrusive thought I need to solve, or I don't trust myself in that situation. So what happens is we then start to avoid living our life. The brain goes, oh no, but the thing we want to do is live our lives. Oh no, what if, because now also, because we're not living our life becomes this thing that's going to happen in the future. And so the brain starts to worry, well, what are the things that could interfere with us getting to that future place where we're going to live our lives? And then it goes, oh no, what if something bad happened to us? Or what if we did something bad to ourselves? Then we wouldn't get to live our lives. Oh no. And then we avoid things even more, which makes it throw up the intrusive thoughts even more. And so it's really useful to break that cycle. And we break it by living our lives, by doing the things we want to do and having any thought or feeling while we do it. Our owl said, yeah, the absence or presence of a feeling is not a skill. Indeed, indeed. Thank you for repeating that. It helps me see also how far behind I am in the chat. Marlo said, I'm a 30-year-old woman, so the body, so you're mentioning the age for kids. Yeah, if you know, I could tell you I know people who have kids at much more advanced years. Muruga-san, thank you so much. I appreciate you stopping by. Stefan, is there any advice in doing work with or without thoughts? I have a whole work day's worth of studying, and I'm so afraid thoughts will show up because usually they take my attention and I get less done. So yeah, like that fear of thoughts And so you can look at it, like there are probably things that, because it's the same skill, for instance, as like there's music playing right now. So I could give my attention to the music, or I can give my attention to reading. There's probably things you do in life where you know this skill, or like you're reading something and you don't notice that someone's talking to you or something like that, or whatever it might be, something to do with sports maybe. But yeah, part of it's going to be changing the goal, right? This goal of getting rid of thoughts, this goal of not having thoughts, this goal of acting in a particular way and needing there not to be thoughts so you can do that. I find it really helpful to look at the goal we're chasing, because if I have a goal that for instance, I must concentrate, and I'm like, ooh, but thoughts make me not concentrate, then all the brain is going to do the whole time is check for thoughts. So really look at the goal. Like having a goal of wanting to have thoughts is going to be so much more useful. Orica, I just saw your comment about kids. Yeah, and so, Stefan, you were just asking about that. Yeah, can you elaborate on what you mean by the absence or presence of a feeling is not a skill? I feel like I measure success on having the thoughts come and go, staying less. Yeah, and I'm saying as long as that's the goal, it's just going to guarantee you're constantly checking for thoughts. That's why the focus cannot be on the presence or absence of feeling, because if it is, the brain is just going to be helpful. And that means it's going to check for the feeling constantly. It's also going to give you the feeling constantly, because if success means getting rid of thoughts, then you have to have lots of thoughts to get rid of. Almu, thank you so much. I appreciate this. So not a question, just worried your fries are getting cold. I appreciate it. There are still some fries here. The good thing was when they arrived, they were really, really hot. I actually thought, oh, this is good. Like, they're really hot. They're still gonna be good when we're done the live stream, and I'm going to eat them. But also, I was glad they came before we started, because I ate a bunch of them. But I appreciate it. I was gonna say, if you saw on Instagram, I shared a photograph from the grocery store the other day, because they had a huge bag. It was like much bigger than a normal chip bag, like easily like from my head, down below my shoulders, very, very large. Like a kilogram size bag. But they were French fry shaped potato chips. And I didn't buy them because the bag was too large. But I feel like, yeah, I'm okay with a French fry that's not totally hot. They'll still be good. That's an important thing to think about, though. Oh, bagel. That's an awesome exercise. Oh, I don't know what I just did. I just clicked some filter. Let's see if I can make the filter go away. Oh, there we go. I didn't know there were filters. Y'all, we can have filters. Maybe I'll do it right now so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, there's one called Crush. Oh, what's that one called? Dawn. Oh, we just switched to Dawn. How's everybody like that? It made me lose my spot in the chat though. Oh, Wanderson said, I have a difficult time speaking in public. How can I develop the skill to be comfortable speaking in public? Yeah, it totally is just practice. But again, see how you added in the comfortable? I would look at it instead just speaking in public. Because once we add in that, oh, I've got to be comfortable speaking in public, then we don't control that. But you do control speaking in public. Like you could do a lot of things that involve more public speaking. Maybe you won't be comfortable, but you could really still measure that as success. Because you'd be like, did I speak in public? I did. Okay, how can I do more of that? What do I want to do next time? And so we're moving it from the like, oh, I need to do a good job, I need to be comfortable, to instead, yeah, just are there things I want to share next time that I didn't share this time? Okay, how am I going to do that? Tuduak. Oh, you're welcome. Said, one last thing for today. If I'm not my thoughts, feelings, and emotions, who am I and where am I? I would love to understand that. Yeah, so it's, and even there's some meditation approaches where you'll hear that kind of that question posed, like, who is it that's observing? It's kind of like a koan. It's something to reflect on. It's not something, so yeah, meditation traditions and schools that explore it would say it's not something that there is an answer to, because even words themselves would be a limited, they're a limited description of that. And so, yeah, I find it can be a useful question to be aware of. I mean, to simply be aware that there is something being aware of those things. But whether you can capture that in words, it's not something I have captured in words. And Tuduak, speaking of, thank you so much for the donation. Oh, I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the pair bowing as well. Thank you for sharing the questions today and the support. Narina said, if a friend doesn't reply for a while, I start to ruminate and obsess about why they didn't reply. How do I wait patiently instead of constantly worrying about a response? This is a great spot where I found it helpful to really go after whatever the fear was and just tell myself it was done. Because yeah, I had all sorts of fears around people reject me, people won't like me, I'll be alone. So yeah, it really helped me to notice that, the brain going, oh, that person hasn't responded yet. What's it mean? And just telling my brain, oh, that means I'll never see them again. I guess it was it was really enjoyable while it lasted, but now it's done. Okay. And then doing something else. And then shockingly, sometimes people do reach out again. And if they don't though, it's okay. I trust myself to handle that. Whoa. Jisha said, how to develop patience, calmness, autonomy, and intensity in oneself. I'm not sure. That's a lot of adjectives. I would look instead at actions. Like, what do you want to do in life? Then you'll see, like, oh, okay, I want to go and do that. But trying to chase some adjectives to put on you, that can get complicated. Just like if you were chasing an adjective like clean, because you'll just always judge it as not actually being enough. Zippelgaz said, I have obsessions about the health and looks of my partner. It is very disturbing when I notice something I can't let go of. Suggestions, yeah, it's useful to explore, cutting out all of the compulsions we can do around judging other people, judging ourselves. We get very often, because we're constantly practicing judging, this happens with a body dysmorphic disorder. I forgot about it, what it was called for a second. So with body dysmorphic disorder, we're constantly checking in a mirror and judging ourselves, and then we start to always judge it as wrong, even though it's not. It starts to warp our perception because the brain is dangling this like, oh, you gotta fix it. And then we're like, oh, that's wrong, I gotta fix it. We go and do something to fix it. The brain's like, oh, nope, it's wrong. You gotta do more to fix it. That starts to warp our perception of reality. And so it becomes very untrustworthy. So yeah, it's useful to cut out compulsions like that. Whether we do them to other people or we do them to ourselves, that stuff in the head, it just becomes so disconnected from reality, and then it creates a lot of problems in things like relationships. And Tenta said, is it normal for your heart to feel like it skipped a beat and hurting when you encounter some triggers? So this is an example of a classic reassurance compulsion. So it can really help to cut out checking like that, because if we're going to do that checking and we want to get that certainty, the brain is going to keep skipping those heartbeats. Rocky Fighter And he said, to avoid uncertainty, I have a habit of constantly lying. How to remove this habit? Yeah, only you can remove it. Yeah, you remove it by not lying and then sitting in the uncertainty. And Stefan, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate the laughing animated pair with the headband and the flag. Thank you for sharing the questions today and stopping by. Uju Waladia, I didn't understand what your question means there. You said, does it always work in anxiety that we are just going to react to immediate dangers? I'm not sure what you mean there. Isabel said, I'm sad I'll never have the experience of having a baby. I'm 42 and on medication that also excludes pregnancy. I never knew if it was something I wanted, but I still feel sad. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Caleb said, does anyone else's brain have all these old stored away backstories? Almost story-like lore to their obsessions. I realized that these backstories and lore to my obsessions were actually just OCD. And then I realized my OCD created these giant scary stories and lore about a thing my brain forgets about in like a minute if I allow it to exist. That sounds like a human brain. Murgi-san said, how to deal with visual thoughts. I feel they create an emotion of fear more quickly than verbal thoughts, and I lose my control more often. So yeah, they're not different. And that's why it's so useful to look at how we interact and what we do with it. So even if they're gonna bring up a feeling more quickly, you can still have that feeling, right? It doesn't matter if that feeling comes up instantly, because it's okay to have that feeling. And having that feeling doesn't mean you have to do anything that's not gonna be helpful to you. Oh, Murgi-san says, you said the default filter looks better. Let's go back to the default filter. Ooh, actually, let's look at this filter. Oh yeah, look at this one. This one's like brighter. Oh, but it makes me lose my spot in the chat. But you said, so you asked on all the adjectives. So you said, so what would the actions to practice around? What would be the actions to practice around developing patience, calmness, autonomy, intensity? Yeah. So I wonder, did you get those 4 from someplace? Like, did somebody on the internet tell you have to have those 4 adjectives? Because I don't know what they would mean. And so I can't tell you. You know, you'll get to decide what those mean. But even if you did, I would ask, like, what's the goal? Like, so you mentioned intensity there. Okay, so let's say you achieve the goal, you do the actions that lead to intensity. And you allow yourself, you wake up and you say, look, I am intense. Then what? So I would look at, like, I guess, like, first asking, like, why are those your goals? And so one thing I sometimes ask people around stuff like that is, like, what do you think you're gonna get? So if you're patient, calm, autonomous, like a Roomba, and intense, what are you gonna get? What is it you believe you're gonna get because of that? And maybe you can just go and do that thing you think comes after patience, calmness, autonomy, and intensity. Yeah. What if you could do it today? Erica, yes, any advice on how to make a decision when lots of options seem equally appealing? It's often the case. So what I like to do is pick a tiebreaker value. And you can do this with all sorts of things. Like if you have to buy something, like even just buy a new phone or buy a new bicycle or something like that, because actually you're gonna pick a bunch of options that actually, you'd probably be happy with either of those, any of the ones you do put on your short list. So speaking of short lists, like a list of books you want to read is the same, right? So then picking a value that's going to be the tiebreaker value. And then I just use that and I go, look, any of these options are great. I'm going to pick the one that, has the best ice cream. And then, you just pick it. Enjoy. Since the options are equally appealing, let us know, especially if it's food related. Please do share photos. I love seeing your falafel donuts. They looked and the bread and those little grilled olives. Oof, that looks so delicious. Rocky. Rocky, I'm not sure I understand your question. The one about the you are greater than OCD. Yeah. I am Mr. Adze. As Erica said there, all thoughts are thoughts. Yeah. Muruge-san, yes, you said, I realize at times I make doing what I value as a compulsion. How to avoid getting into that trap? Yeah, it's to just have that clear idea of like, where am I going? And because then part of that is also being able to say, hey, I'm there. Because we could easily say like, I value climbing mountains. And then we climb a mountain and then we're like, I have to climb another mountain because I have to do things I value. And then we go climb that mountain and immediately we're like, I must climb another mountain because I value climbing mountains. And so it is important to be able to enjoy, hey, I did the thing I want to do. Let's enjoy. Let's enjoy. I don't have to keep doing it again and again. I wanted to do a thing. I've done a thing. I can also set a different value right now and enjoy that. And yeah, absolutely. I'm maybe going to bring in that other value again in the future. And so really seeing values are compass directions and we can move them around and choose different ones as we move through life. Mr. Mitchell, hello. So I just want to say thank you for making all the videos that made. Thank you. I appreciate the kind words. Thanks for checking them out. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, you made a live stream. And Tenta, yeah, thank you for dropping by the live stream today too. Sam, I said, shouldn't OCD obsessions fade over time? Ooh. I said, why am I still hugely disturbed on a daily basis by a major trigger from many years ago? Is it possible to get over this and feel okay again? So what I find it more useful to look at isn't an obsession. It's to actually look at the compulsions we're doing. So recognizing that like an intrusive thought is a set of compulsions. So I would look at that instead because there's no particular reason it would fade. Like this is when somebody's like doing scripts or something, repeating something over and over again. I always point out, well, if repeating an obsession over and over again got rid of it, you wouldn't have them in the first place, right? Because that's the whole thing, is repeating it over and over again and feeling terrible about it. So I would look at how are you interacting with it? What are you doing with it? Because that's the stuff that's gonna change. And when I say gonna change, I mean you'll change it. Linus, you said, would you say there's a technique for stopping compulsions? Like observing, or should I just keep practicing resisting? I'm not sure what that means. But if you cut out a compulsion, like right now, I'm not taking the plate of French fries and smashing it into my head. I mean, either I do it or I don't do it. Like I'm not fighting it right now. It's just not a thing I'm gonna do. Irina, you said, have you eaten any nice donuts in Asia in 2023? Oh, this specific, not. So I've had some good pastries, but I haven't yet been in a city because often what I'll do with the donuts is I'll go to the city and then I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna eat all of the donut shops in the city just because of where I've been staying so far. I'm kind of out in the countryside actually. Today I'm on, I came in to do some work. I'm in the big city, but I actually live out in the countryside. So not a lot of donuts around where I live. But I'll be in Japan later this year, and I already have donut shops saved in particular cities because then I'll go, okay, who has the best donuts in Kyoto, and then we will find out. So yeah, there'll be some really good donuts on the way. Chisha said, how about maladaptive daydreaming? It's difficult when I start to speak alone in a room. It takes up all my time and energy, but the conversation is difficult to escape. Well, so yeah, you may have missed it at the beginning. One thing I was talking about was just how we spend our time and energy is an action. So I wouldn't look at it just, putting the label on maladaptive daydreaming. It just helped me to see it all as how I spend time and energy, and really seeing as like getting caught up in those conversations. It's just like us scrolling through our phone, right? Like we can stop doing that, but yeah, it is of course difficult not to do it. Stefani said, will I come to Europe soon? I'd like to. I because I try to travel, like not travel too much, to cut down on the pollution it creates. I tend to stay in one area for a chunk of time. So I don't know if I'll make it to Europe. Like I know I won't make it to Europe before June. I don't know if there might be an opportunity later in the year, but yeah, I don't know yet. But hopefully soon. It'd be great. In the past, I've done workshops with our community. We have lots of members in Europe, so it'd be great to go and do some workshops again. So yeah, probably when I come to Europe, there's also a bunch of hiking I want to do. So I'll probably do like that's the thing. I'll do quite a long trip because it's great to get around Europe by train and boat. And so I'll be able to go and stay for a while, and we can do some workshops and we can go on hikes, and yeah, it'll be a good time, and eat donuts. Sam, yes, the recording of the live stream will be on my channel. But then you said, so I can remember the advice you gave, then don't watch it again. Yep, and I'm serious. Because checking, right, like, I've got to watch a mental health video again and just make sure I remember, the brain will just make you not remember, because then we get to watch it again and again and again and again. So yeah, if you notice later, I don't remember what he said, doesn't matter, because you're just going to go and give your time and energy to things you actually want to be growing in life. So rather than going and watching the video again, go and do something that you really want to be doing in life. Erica, yeah, a great question there you asked, Linus. What would you like to spend your time and energy on instead? Oh, and Tenta, you're in Asia as well? A different part? Thank you for the wishing me fun. I hope you're having fun too. Muruge-san, he said, how to deal with existential thoughts? You know it's OCD, but they seem so real. Well, you could make that, you could say that for anything, right? I know it's OCD, but they seem so real. It's still gonna be about, are you spending time? So when you say how to deal with existential thoughts, you don't have to deal with them. So whatever it is you're doing right now, what's difficult about not doing that? Because that's gonna be the thing to practice. Saying, okay, yeah, the brain's gonna throw up an uncertainty there. You don't have to do anything with it. Because it doesn't matter if it's, so actually, like the whole real thing, I find it helpful not to go, oh, it's OCD, or oh, it's mental illness, or oh, it's irrational. I found it way more helpful to say, yeah, it's real, and I'm not gonna think about it. So the brain goes, yeah, like what What if we live in a simulation? What if things aren't real? What if there's no free will? Fine, great. And I'm gonna go to the donut store. Maybe the donuts aren't real. Maybe I can't choose not to go and eat donuts. Okay, I'm gonna go do it anyway. And so whatever's gonna make the brain squirm, that's what I go for right there. And it's gonna feel it's real. Because we're gonna wrap up things here in a second. And so Erica just shared something, and because as Almo pointed out earlier, and really important, I have to finish my French fries. I'm gonna go get some other food too. I think I'm. What time is it? Yeah, it's 9 o'clock. I'm gonna go get some other food too. Cause yeah, Ray, I went to the gym. I haven't eaten anything but French fries. Erica raised a really good point here. That's gonna help us wrap up. Forget everything Mark said and do stuff you care about. It really is about that. Because actually, I see somebody asked just below about, Gigi asked about how to increase memory retention. It's actually not to be checking. It really helps. This is something I used to do so much checking and would be like, well, I do forget it, or I don't remember this particular thing. And that would happen a lot around numbers, all sorts of other things. A huge help with memory retention was starting to use my memory, starting to trust it, to force myself to use it. But I was constantly, in the past, checking things. It was because I was checking things all the time, my brain didn't have to remember anything, because I was just gonna go and check anyway. So it really helped to remove that. Be like, no, I've gotta remember things, because I'm not going back to check them. Sam, he said, I'm not actually giving into the OCD and doing compulsions, but it still disturbs me on a daily basis. I'm not sure where I'm going wrong. So it helped me to see that is OCD. Like that, like hating on a thing. So if it's like a thought's there and like we're hating on it, if that's what you're describing as like that disturbs me, like it helped me, like that's OCD. That's the same as if I was to like, rather than talking with you all right now, I was like, guys, we gotta stop this because I don't like the flower arrangement on the table. I gotta hate on it. It really disturbs me. Like that's the, me judging that and hating that and spending time and energy on that. It's the same as if somebody had a contamination compulsion, and they were like, oh, I cut out the compulsion, but I hate that I feel contaminated. They're still doing the compulsions. Like that, judging it as something that needs fixing, that's the compulsion. And so yeah, it could really help to go after that. Oh, Manuke-san, thank you. Have a good weekend as well. Maserat said, don't starve for us. I won't. Thank you, everybody. Sam, thank you as well. Yeah, I hope everybody, will wrap things up there. Tudawak and Stefan, thank you so much for the donations. I appreciate the support today. And everybody, thank you for stopping by. I wish you much fun this week with doing things you want to do, growing things you want to grow in life, and putting that at the center. You can have the wildest, weirdest images in your head. That's fine. And you can grow things that you want to see in the world, and that can be the focus. So enjoy that. So thank you so much for dropping by the cafe today and sharing about your brain. I am going to eat French fries now and drink coffee and then go and get some sushi and then rest. And I'll talk to you all on social media. Share any comments below if you're watching this later, not rewatching it, and you have a question that we didn't cover, or I'll see you over on the Mental Fitness Discord server. Until next time, everybody, have a great day or evening, and thank you so much for stopping by. And I see somebody, Christian, you said, For Discord, um, oh yeah, you know what? So yeah, I gotta say, Christian, yeah, the contact form on my website looks like it's probably some plugin or something. It's busted. So yeah, you can just send a message on Instagram or something like that, and I can send you the invite link. Um, Thank you, everybody. Yeah, if you have a question I didn't get to there, yeah, throw it down in the comments below, and we'll tackle it. Okay, everybody. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by. Have a good week of growing things.